Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rakshita, and this is Tekli, Wangdi, Minyan, and Urshad, and we are Team Gen Closer from Victoria Junior College. According to several reports, there has been a widening generation gap between the older and younger generation in Singapore, and this is a cause for concern, as interaction between these two generations is extremely crucial for a healthy and inclusive society. To tackle this issue, our team aims to encourage interaction and intermingling between these two generations through the implementation of various interest courses and interactive activities to build a close-knit community in Singapore. Up next, Urshad will elaborate more on our target group.
Okay, so for our target group, we are targeting both the youth and the elderly. So for the elderly, we are targeting those above the age of 60 who have retired. So we estimate that they have around 7 to 8 hours of free time a day, so that they can use that to learn new skills and also socialize with the youth. For our youth, we are targeting those of the age 15 to 24. So interaction with the elderly from a young age can actually develop a positive attitude towards aging. And not only that, there are many things to learn from the experienced elderly, as they can share their life experiences as well. Now I will pass the time on to Wang Di, who will share more about the project synopsis.
Okay, hi. As mentioned before, we will be conducting cooperative courses like cooking, pastry, and calligraphy. We are also going to have interactive activities like day tour, games day, and mentorship program. So those activities are chosen based on the feedbacks we have received from our target audiences. So our participants will be able to gain skills while creating fun experience through socializing with one another. For our online publicity, we have already created our very own Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube pages with a website to be refined soon. For our physical publicity, we are going to put up posters around HDB blocks, and we are also going to distribute flyers. Our partners will also be involved in our publicity, which will be elaborated later on. Now Mia will share about our budget plan, timeline, and current progress.
Our programs will be held on a weekly basis, and here's our sample timeline. As you can see, this is our budget, which consists of our sources of income as well as our expenditure. Currently, we have interviewed both generations to find out more about the barriers that they have to overcome when interacting with the other generation. Based on their responses, we have decided to hold our activities mostly in public areas or also in online spaces. Most importantly, most of our participants have also expressed interest in taking part in our program. Due to the COVID-19 situation, we are currently unable to hold physical activities. However, we will be planning an online Zoom session for our Zoom mentorship program in March to ensure that we can gain more beneficial feedback from our participants. Now, Tekli will be telling us more about the partnerships as well as the measure of success.
Firstly, we will be working with community centers for their event venues and publicity. This is because community centers generally have a wider context and have more avenues for us to publicize. Other than that, we will also want to partner with supermarkets such as Sheng Siong for the supply of snacks for our activities, and also other groceries required for the cooking sessions and the pastry lessons. Next, we will also want to partner with non-government organizations such as Hardware Network, as they generally have more supplies and resources for us to use. These can include volunteers, which we greatly require, and this will also help us in our additional publicity. Next, moving on to our measure of success. In the midpoint of our project, we'll have to measure the success of our publicity, our supply of resources, and the participation rate of our activities. The specifics can be on the screen above. Next, in the endpoint of our project, we need to measure the success of our project in achieving our target goal. This can be measured using surveys, participation rate, and our reach to the public audience. With that, thank you for your kind attention, and I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane Closer. We will ask the judges to give their comments or their questions. It's great to know that you've already created some social media platforms. How's the take-up rate now?
Currently, our publicity isn't the thing that we have focused the most on, because the thing that we are focusing more is actually about the pilot testing session. So we didn't really put in that much effort into our publicity. We can only ensure that after we get the funding, because we actually spend a lot on publicity. We aims to like having more clicks into our websites, into like the take-up rate also.
Can you elaborate on how much the elders and the youths would have to pay per activity?
For the courses, right, actually for the day tour, we are planning to have a cheap fee of about $30 per person. Because based on our research, right, day tours in Singapore generally cost about $60 to $100 per person for a full day of tour. So by charging about a $20 to $30, right, it's actually a feasible idea and a reasonable amount to charge them, and this will ensure that they are willing to join. For the other courses, such as cooking courses, we will require them to pay about $15. As also based on our research, this is a lot lower than the market rate. The other courses, such as the calligraphy and painting lessons, right, are like cheaper and are like cheaper or even free for most of the time. For example, the Zoom session is actually free of charge that we are applying for them.
So for all the activities, I saw that for cooking you already had the chef, but for calligraphy and stuff, you also already have volunteers lined up, is it?
Actually, for calligraphy lesson, we will be looking for volunteers through like Hardware Network.
Maybe just a suggestion, the day tour, right? Maybe you should look around the HDB flyers, right? They don't charge so much, so you might like to do market research. Yeah.
Hey, again, kudos for putting your time and effort to take this up going into your A-levels year. So very good of you, thank you. I have a question for you about your problem statement. Right, so if you look at your earlier slide, you say that your problem statement is that we have a serious generation gap between the youth and the pioneer generation. Can you elaborate a bit more about how you validated this? How did you come to this conclusion?
Okay, so we have actually come across a study. It's about the attitude towards LGBT group among Singaporeans. So about like 10 years ago, the difference between youth and the elderly, which is the study consider youth as like from 18 to 20s, and the elderly as those who are above 50. Like that, most of them are disapproved towards LGBT groups, and they think that they shouldn't get married in Singapore. So the data is actually around the same. But then 10 years later, which they conducted the study in 2016, there's a huge difference among the opposing attitudes towards LGBT group afterwards. So for the youths, actually like 30%, more than 30% of them think that they should have the right to get married in Singapore. But actually the growth rate for elderly is only like 6%. So it's still less than 10% of them agree that LGBT groups should get married. So it shows like there's a attitude, they have like different attitude and different opinions towards the social issues in Singapore as the time's growing.
To add on, right, we also did more personal interviews and with people that we know personally as well. So we conducted surveys and interviews to find out more about both generations, the youth and the elderly. And so what we gathered from the youth would be that they would be interested in getting closer to the elderly, but they don't really know means to do so. And for the elderly, they also find it interesting to connect with youth of today, but they have no platform to do so. So this works as a means to bring them together to close the generational gap. So this is based on feedback that we have gathered personally.
Okay, thanks. Since I have 30 seconds more, maybe I'll just push you a little bit, okay? So how do you see the correlation between what you're planning to do and how to bridge these differences in opinions? So let's say you raise the survey on attitudes towards LGBT, right? So by cooking together, what's your hypothesis on how this can bridge the divide in views?
We think that one of the reasons for why there's a generation gap is because they don't have a common interest and common activities that they can talk about to intermingle. And I feel like in these interest activities, they are picking up new skills together with the other person from another generation. And in this point, they will have they have more common things to talk about. So I think that our solution will give them an opportunity to intermingle. Yeah.
Sorry, can I just add on a bit, even though we have exceeded the time? But because LGBT is just like a small part of the issue, so they actually have like their other like underlying questions. Like a lot of times you'll hear youth complain about why do we have to pay the tax? Why do we have to build this kind of construction for elderlies? So this is like, so for example, we have the mentorship program where they can actually learn things from each other, where the youth can appreciate like the existence of elderly. So they want to actually help the elderly. And also during like our surveys, we hear like sometimes the elderly will say like they don't understand why the youth doing these kind of things, or like youth don't want to talk to them. So maybe by having like pastry lesson, they can have a common interest, and also by conducting those courses and activities, we'll have icebreaker games where they can actually bond and have like a common memory. It actually like connects them together.
Thank you. Thanks for your clarification and for your clear dedication and passion to this. Thanks.
All right, so that's the end of the Q&A session. So thank you, Jen. Closer.